What's up, you guys? Welcome back to my channel. Today's video is going to be my birth story. I mentioned in my previous video that I just posted, the kind of like me and my baby video, that we were going to sit down and film this when we had more time. So Archer is asleep in his little snuggle me right next to us, so we figured it was the perfect time to sit down and film this. So I also mentioned in that video that I kind of wrote down things that were happening as they happened the day that I was in labor, just knowing that I would not remember anything, especially not specific details later on, to be able to share with you guys. So yeah, I've got like the basic things that happened and when they happened in my notes, and obviously I have Caleb here too because he was there for the whole thing, and I figured that it would be good to hear like his experience of the whole thing and his view and
sheer terror,
all of that. So I guess without further ado, subscribe if you're new and let's get into the video. So I gave birth on January 18th, but my labor started January 19th. Like at night, I started having some like real contractions. I had been like contracting and cramping for a while, like a really long time. Like I was in preterm labor at 33 weeks, and then I kind of was just like having cramps and contractions and stuff up until that point, but it wasn't until the 17th that I was like...
Yeah, you said 19th before, but she meant 17th.
Oh, yeah, 17th. I was like, wow, these are actually real contractions. Like I could feel that they were starting and stopping and they were getting worse, but it wasn't to the point that I was like, these are really horrible, we need to go to the hospital. And I was really scared about that because I have a really high pain tolerance, so I was really nervous that like I was gonna be like, oh, these aren't that bad, and then like we're gonna get to the hospital and the baby was gonna be there. So yeah, my contractions started on the 17th that night, and then during the day I was kind of like, we're gonna end up at the hospital either today or tonight, so let's just like prepare for that. So we already had our bags packed, but we kind of got all our stuff together, and that day we like went and walked around the mall, and like I bounced on my exercise ball thing a bunch, and the contractions like kept going, which normally I get contractions at night and then they'd stop during the day, but that was the first time that they actually like kept going during the day. So when that night hit, I was like, let's just like go to bed and try to get some sleep, but like be prepared for me to wake you up in the middle of the night. We're gonna go to the hospital. So I think we went to bed around like 12:30, and by 3 a.m. I was like, we gotta go to the hospital. Like it was not fun. My water hadn't broken, but I was having really bad contractions that I was like, this is real, we gotta go. So at that point, like I wasn't 100% sure that we were gonna stay there, just because when your water doesn't break, you feel like you're feeling real contractions, but because I'd never had a baby before, I didn't know. So I didn't tell anyone. We didn't tell anyone we were going to the hospital because I didn't want to tell people that and then get sent home and have them be like, you're not even dilated, like go home.
I'm gonna go, nerd.
So yeah, between 1 and 3 a.m. on the 18th was definitely like when I realized that I was actually in labor. So we got to the hospital around 3:30 a.m. and went to triage, and they checked me, and I was 4 centimeters. Yeah, 4 centimeters dilated, and baby's head was super low. Like she could see it and feel it. Like she had to reach around his head.
+1.
Yeah, it was +1. I had to ask what that meant like hours later, but she said that she had to like reach around his head to check my cervix because his head was what? Yeah, the baby's head was super low. So then they checked me in or whatever, and eventually we got taken to labor and delivery, and they had to give me, I wanted an epidural. Like I knew going into it that I wanted an epidural, so they started me on fluids, and then it was kind of like really horrible waiting for the epidural because the nurses were just like not communicating very well, so I ended up not being able to get it for a few hours because they didn't give me fluids in the time that I needed to get fluids. So let's see, we got to the hospital at 3:30 a.m. and I didn't get my epidural until 7:30 a.m. and the contractions were just like continually getting worse at that point, and probably like 15 to 20 minutes before they came in to do the epidural, I was like crying, I was shaking, I was like, so I was so scared.
It was pretty painful to watch.
Yeah, like I thought that I couldn't do it and I wasn't gonna make it, and I also felt like because they hurt so bad that I was dilating really quickly, and that they like weren't gonna come in time, and then I was gonna have to do the entire labor completely natural, and they weren't gonna like have time to give me the epidural, and that really scared me. At 7:30, like I said, they came in and did the epidural, which was, well, honestly like not as scary as I thought it was gonna be. It's in your back so you can't see anything, but the anesthesiologist was this really cute old man. He was really nice. Okay. And I didn't care at all that he was just seeing my bare butt or anything. Like he was just like really comforting, and he kept like calling me by name, and from my understanding, the needle was extremely large.
It's a big needle.
But luckily I didn't see it, so I didn't know. It was just like a pinch for the local anesthetic before they actually put the epidural in.
Support parents out there, just don't watch.
Yeah.
That's my tip to you. Just don't watch that needle.
Yeah, I didn't see anything. Like, they kept it all against my back, and I was also having contractions while they were prepping me, so I was totally not focused at all on the epidural. I was just like, numb me, like, make this stop. So yeah, they gave me the epidural at 7:30. And then they came in and checked me again at noon, and I still hadn't progressed. I was still only at 4 centimeters, but at this point I was just like loving life. I couldn't feel anything from the waist down. Like,
she couldn't even move her legs.
My left leg was so dead that like sometimes I'd try to move and it would like fall off the bed a little bit, and I'd have to have Caleb come over and like lift it up and put it back on because I just like couldn't feel anything. I could definitely feel more on the right side of my body, which I guess is common because it's like gravity, the way that the epidural like goes throughout your body. So they kept saying they were gonna like move me like a rotisserie chicken, so the nurse would come in every once in a while and I would like shift from one side to the other and have like this big like peanut, what is it? Like a peanut ball?
It was like an exercise ball, but it was shaped like a peanut.
It had a face on it too. It was huge, but so they would like, I would have that between my legs to kind of like help open my everything. So yeah, at noon when they checked me and there was no progress, they gave me Pitocin, which is like a natural induction whatever, so try to like move things along. So in my IV they gave me my first dose of Pitocin, and they also gave me my first dose of penicillin. I mentioned this in a few videos. What are you talking about? Oh,
he's got stuff to say. He woke himself up with that sneeze. He's talking ever since.
They had to give me penicillin during labor because I tested positive for group B strep, so they decided to start that at noon. And then at 3:30 p.m. my water started leaking, but apparently it didn't break. I thought it broke just based on like, I could feel that I was wet, but like I said, the epidural numbed me so much, but like when I put my hand down there, like I could feel that it was wet, but apparently it hadn't broken yet because they checked it later and it just hadn't fully
just a little bit
broken. It just had like a little leak in it. So I was dilated finally to a 7 at 5:30 p.m. They only gave me 1 dose of Pitocin, which is good, so it really worked to like make things go and they didn't have to keep giving me more. And then when they checked me for that at 5:30 to see that I was dilated to a 7, they were going to break my waters, but they couldn't because I hadn't gotten my 2nd dose of penicillin yet, and they want you to have 2 doses before you have your baby. And I had to wait, it's like 4 hours between each dose. So I had to wait until 6 p.m. so they could give me the 2nd dose of penicillin. And then from there, it was kind of just like a horrible waiting game. Like I put in here, threw up somewhere in there because I don't remember exactly when that happened, but at one point.
She drank some cranberry juice and then immediately threw it up.
Yeah, I just started, like I sent Caleb on a hunt for Gatorade at one point. Oh, I didn't even write this down. Somewhere in between here, I sent Caleb on a hunt for Gatorade because I couldn't eat because they didn't know, like you can't eat when you're in labor. I think because they don't know if you're gonna have to have surgery or not, like you could possibly need an emergency C-section, and also they don't want you getting sick. So I was like, I need something with flavor, please go find me Gatorade. And while Caleb was gone finding me Gatorade, the midwife and the nurse came in and they were like, are you feeling okay? And I was like, yeah, why? And they took my temperature because the baby's heart rate was high, which if you've watched our previous videos, you know that that was kind of like a struggle during my entire pregnancy, was him having abnormally high heart rates every once in a while. So me being in labor and being emotional, like Caleb got back and I was just like
yeah, I left, she was fine, and when I got back she's just bawling in the room alone. Oh, this is good. Because like they said they weren't concerned, it wasn't like in dangerous levels, it was just like it was creeping up and they weren't sure why. And sometimes like if I had a fever that would cause that or something, which I didn't, so they just didn't know why it was happening. But I mean, eventually it went back down and it was never a problem. Like it never went up while I was pushing, and it's been fine since he's been alive in the world. So yeah, that was just kind of like a stressful part of the labor because I like was all alone when they came in to tell me that, and then I was just so nervous that something was going to be wrong or something was going to happen to him. So yeah, he went to go get Gatorade, so I drank some Gatorade, and then they came back and they were like, do you want some cranberry juice? And I was like, sure. And then I just started sweating. Like I was so hot. Caleb and I were trying to find scissors because I had a bra on at this point, and I was like, we have to cut this bra off. I need nothing on my body. Like I was, we couldn't get it off because she had like the IV.
Oh yeah, I had, so I had like my blood pressure cuff over here, I had my IV in my hand over here, and then I had the epidural thing in my back, so like all of those were keeping my bra on. So I was like, someone get me some scissors, I need to cut this bra off because I was so hot. And then finally I threw up, which like that like relieving throw up when you're like, I just need to puke. So I puked up all the cranberry juice, and then I was still really, really hot after that.
Apparently vomiting is like a sign of labor's
imminent. They told me that like all of the not fun stuff that happens, it's a good sign because it means that things are progressing. So like when I told them that I was really hot and I threw up, they were like, I know you don't want to hear this, but that's a good thing. So yeah, eventually my nurse came back and I was like, I gotta get this bra off. So she like took the little IV thing out and like worked it around my epidural and stuff, so I was able to get that off. And then so that was like somewhere between 6 and 7:30 p.m. and then my contractions started up again, and we decided to start pushing around 7:30. So the epidural was slowly, I don't really know how it works because I was still like, when you have an epidural they give you a button that you can press whenever you want to like revamp it if you start to not feel numb anymore.
So the epidural numbs you, but there's a pain medication that's in your IV that you can push, and it'll release a small dose of painkillers. So it wasn't actually numbing you, it was just the pain.
Okay. So like no matter how many times I pressed that button, my pain was no longer going away, and I was feeling my contractions again, like to the extent that like I was really in pain, crying, like clenching Caleb's hands so hard because these were contractions like labor contractions, like I was fully dilated and was feeling those contractions. So my midwife came in and was like, even though, or I guess I should say this, when you're in labor,
it's another sneeze.
When you're in labor, they tell you that you'll know it's time to push because you'll feel like insane pressure in your butt, like you'll feel like you have to poop really, really bad. But
pick him up, or
yeah.
I don't know if you want him in this video.
Yeah, he can come in. This is all about you. Oh. So they'll tell you like you'll know when it's time to push because you'll feel pressure in your butt. You'll feel like you have to poop so bad, and I never felt that. So they kept coming in and I was like crying, having these really horrible contractions, but I never felt that pressure. So finally they were like, we're not going to force you to just lay here and feel these contractions. I was fully 10 centimeters dilated, so she's like, let's just go with it. Let's just push with these contractions. So
especially because he was so low already.
Yeah, he was just insanely low. So I started pushing at 7:30, and my water actually still hadn't broken at this point. So my water broke while I was pushing. I obviously, like, I couldn't feel it. I didn't really know that that was happening, but you said that like a lot.
Yeah, if you're ever curious, like, oh, did my water break and I didn't know it? You'll know it. I don't know how you wouldn't know it. That was a lot of fluid.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, like, I couldn't...
If you're in the shower or something, I could see it.
Yeah, like, I couldn't tell because I was still kind of numb, and also I was obviously focused on other things, and, like, I was just pushing. I didn't know what was coming out or what was happening. Yeah. But it's also weird when you start pushing, like, you imagine in the movies how there's, like, so many people in the room and so much going on. It was literally, like, my nurse, my midwife, and Caleb, and the midwife just came in and was like, let's just push.
It's so nonchalant.
Let's push. And then so like Caleb grabbed my right leg and the midwife grabbed my left leg, and the nurse was on the monitor checking his heart rate, and then I was just pushing, and all of a sudden, like, it didn't even occur to me that I was pushing him out. Like, for some reason, I, like, in my head I was like, oh, maybe this is just practice, or like, I don't know why it didn't occur to me, but then all of a sudden I was like, wow, I'm gonna have a baby. Yeah, that was around 7:30. I had to mark that down, obviously, like, after it happened, because I wasn't, like, on my phone like, oh, these contractions are starting, I'm gonna start pushing. So I think that was around 7:30, and the only reason I think that is because I only pushed for like an hour, and he was born at 8:49, so I'm assuming that that's around when it happened. So yeah, I pushed for like an hour. It really was like the best part of the whole labor because you actually feel like you're doing something, and because you start pushing as soon as your contraction starts, and then you stop when your contraction stops, so you don't feel your contraction because you're focused on pushing. So it was honestly like the most amazing relief ever, and you just like feel there. I mean, my nurse and my midwife were like
great.
Amazing, yeah. And I seriously felt like I was like a superhero every time I pushed, and they were like, yeah, you're doing it, like, this is it, and it just like made me feel like I was like super powerful, I guess. Like, birth, they really, like, everyone says that birth is super like empowering and stuff, and it really is. And you just, I don't know, I can't even explain like how it feels, and it was really cool that, I mean, you can kind of talk now about like your experience like watching it, because I feel like a lot of dads have different experiences, because some are like, ew, I don't want to watch, like, I don't want to see that, and other ones are like,
I was on the fence. When we started, I wasn't sure if I was going to want to watch or not, but once it started, I was like, I saw everything happening. I was a little grossed out at first, but then it was like a very magical experience, and
yeah.
I wouldn't have I would have regretted it if I didn't watch the whole thing.
Well, he was so low that like I think I pushed once or twice and they were like, Dad, do you want to come see the head? So like you already got to see his head and like his little bit of hair like right from the very beginning. So I feel like that was probably like a, wow, this is really
It's like someone squeezing an avocado out of a keyhole. It's like, dude.
An avocado?
Yeah, it was a very, like a, oh, this is a very awkward
cantaloupe
looking. I know, but at first you can only see like a little sliver.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you see it because they brought a mirror out for me at one point too, so I could see it, and I was like, that's a head. Like it literally just looks like this, like that. I don't know, it's so weird. And they let me like feel it too, which was just super squishy, and I was like, that is not a head. It was so confusing. Archer was born at 8:49 p.m. and then as soon as he came out, like he was crying already before the rest of his body was even out.
His eyes were open immediately.
Yeah, so his head
kind of creepy.
Yeah. So his head was out, and then they kind of have you just like push subtly and stop, push and stop, and then all of a sudden like he was here, and it was so crazy because I'd been pushing and it like didn't really think about how long it had been, and then all of a sudden they were like, okay, one more push and he's gonna be out, and I was just like, I looked at Caleb and I just started like crying. Like it was just like I could not control myself. It just happened so fast. So then all of a sudden he was out, and then
I started crying.
Yeah, so then he started crying. So we're both just crying. Everybody's and then crying. As soon as he came out, because he was crying right away, they just like put him right on my chest. So that was really nice that like there's nothing wrong with him, so he got to immediately go right on me. And then they did delayed cord clamping, so it was like maybe a minute or two until they clamped the cord, so that was cool. And Caleb cut the cord, which, I mean,
a very rubbery experience.
Yeah.
It's kind of weird.
And then like obviously they just like let him stay on you, or let the baby stay on you while they do kind of all the stuff they need to do down there. So I tore in 2 different places, so they had to stitch me up in 2 different places. I was numb, so I couldn't feel the stitches, so that was nice. And then they also like rub your belly a bunch to make sure that your uterus is like contracting and going down and not bleeding too much, which from my understanding I was bleeding quite a bit.
Yeah, well, I didn't realize it until I looked down at the floor and my feet were in a puddle of blood.
But it eventually stopped and it was totally fine in my uterus. Like by the time we left the hospital, I feel like it was completely down. It happened really, really fast. But yeah, so I got stitched up and then was just kind of like laying there with him, and then we birthed the placenta, which I actually don't feel like I pushed a little bit. They had me push a little bit, but it came out pretty easily on its own. And then they showed us the placenta and just kind of showed us like the different parts of it and like where the bag broke and stuff. So that was really cool to see. And also they showed us his umbilical cord, which mine was like 2 times longer than the normal cord. Like it was so long. I don't know what causes that. But so we got to see the umbilical cord and the placenta, and then obviously they take him and they weigh him and they measure him and they gave him the eye ointment. Not me. Yeah, right, sorry. You can see his head kind of. They gave him like the eye ointment, the vitamin K shot, and then we also opted to get the Hep B shot in the hospital just to get it out of the way. He weighed, I don't remember if I said this in the last video, he weighed 8 pounds, 6.5 ounces, and it was 21.25 inches long. So he was much bigger than we expected, but he's still just a little peanut. He's super long and bony, and he's just the cutest thing ever. So yeah, that happened, and then we got moved to postpartum at 10:30. So like an hour and a half after I gave birth, we got moved to postpartum, and then we just kind of postpartumed.
Post-party.
Yeah, once you get there, it's just kind of like a lot of nurses coming in to check me, to check the baby. Honestly, that's kind of a blur. I didn't write anything down for that, but it's kind of weird how they just kind of, like, obviously they should trust you to be parents, but they just leave you in there and they're like, all right, here's this baby, like, goodbye, good luck. And I was like, oh my god, now we're just trusted to like take care of him. So yeah, he latched right away, which was really good. So I was feeding him every like 2 to 3 hours, and obviously nurses coming in to check him, and he was all good the whole time. Like his coloring was good and his heart was good and everything. His face was super smushed when he was born. I don't know if I talked about this in all the ultrasounds. We had 5 different ultrasounds during my pregnancy, and every single one we couldn't see his face because his face was always smushed up against something, either like the placenta or
his own foot
on his head, or his hands, or my hip or something. So when he came out, his nose was like completely squished down, and this little, what is this called? Your little like center cartilage thing?
Septum.
Oh yeah, that's your septum. It's okay, it's fixed now.
Well,
His septum was
something I don't?
was like sideways, and obviously like his face was all swollen because like babies' faces are swollen. So he looked so much different than he looks now.
He looked like a little wrestler because one of his ears was like
cauliflower, one of his ears was like all pushed
head.
down and like all wrinkly, which it still kind of is. I don't know.
An Olympic wrestler.
See it, but
it's a little pointy.
It was funny. Like obviously you look at your baby and you just like immediately love them, but he's so much cuter now that he's not all like squished and swollen. They continue to check me and like keep track of my bleeding, and they do like this push on your uterus thing like 6 different times in like a bunch of different time intervals, and it sucks. It really sucks. And also when you breastfeed, it makes your uterus contract, which really sucks. I'm gonna make a whole video about my postpartum recovery, but I'm gonna talk about the things that they don't tell you, because I had no idea like how horrible that part was going to be. Like it was arguably more painful than the labor process. So I'm definitely gonna talk about that in another video. But yeah, I guess now that we're into the postpartum thing, that's kind of our birth story. That's how like the whole day went. It was much longer than I expected. So my like I haven't done the math to figure out how long it actually lasted, because I don't know when you would consider like active labor happening. I would say that mine happened midnight on the 18th, but because I had those contractions all on the 17th, I don't know. But we got to the hospital at 3:30 and we didn't have him until like 9 p.m. So it was a very long day.
There was a lot more Hulu watching than I expected there to be.
We took some naps, we watched some Bob's Burgers. It was weird to just like, when you have the epidural, you don't feel anything. So you're just laying there like hanging out, and like you can watch on the screen that you're having a contraction, or you can feel your belly and feel that it's hard, but you can't feel anything. So you almost feel guilty, like why am I just laying here like watching TV? I should be having a baby. It's such a weird thing.
It was pretty weird.
But I mean, I would not change a thing. It was
nope. Because I got this little guy.
Yeah, I guess that's it. I hope that's kind of what people were looking for. I've had a lot of people ask me to post my birth story, and I feel like it's just kind of just kind of going through the day and letting you guys know how it went. So yeah, like I said, I'll be posting a postpartum recovery video once I am recovered. I'm not fully recovered yet, so then I'll get more into like the bleeding and the tearing and the stitches and all of that, but this video will be way too long if I get into that right now. So it was a really, really emotional experience.
It was, yeah.
It's something that like I really hope that everyone that gives birth has one special person that they can have with them, that they could share that with, because I've definitely like struggled a little bit emotionally like thinking about the day, and it's one of those things where like you could tell someone that that's how you're feeling and they're like, oh, I totally get it, but unless like someone was there with you and you experienced that exact experience together, you really like, it's hard to feel understood. So I feel like having Caleb there for the whole thing and knowing that like we experienced that together, and like just looking at him and kissing him and crying together like as soon as he was out and on my chest, and like us just like having that moment, something that I will never forget. And it's just like I really hope everybody can have that, because
I'm very much in awe of how strong you are. I don't know how you did it. I'm proud of you.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
It's one of those things that like you think you can't do it. Honestly, when it starts to get really hard, you think like I can't do this, and then all of a sudden here they are done. And you forget about it. I'm almost like, yeah, I could do it again.
Right.
So it's just, you just forget about it when as soon as you get a little peanut in your arms. So yeah, I guess that's it for this video. I think that maybe he's hungry, or he just wants us to stop talking. So
like, why are they talking about me?
I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe down below. Oh, are you doing it?
Thumbs up, dude.
Give it a thumbs up. And be on the lookout for more videos, my postpartum recovery video, our nursery tour, all of that good stuff. I want to make a video about like our favorite newborn items so far, like the products that we've really been loving for him. So yeah, be on the lookout for those. Make sure you follow me on Instagram. We've been posting a lot of really cute pictures of him because he's the most photogenic baby ever. And that's it. I always draw these exits?
Yeah.
What's the opposite of an intro? Outro. I always drag outros out. So I love you guys so much. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.
Bye.
Bye.